Even Steve Bailey is,
Right,
I
right.
mean, I love Steve Bailey.
Correct, correct.
What Victor Wooten and he does
Both of
is
them
just
also have a album, I guess. Dave Alien, Victor
correct,
Wooten.
correct, correct.
There's
They have
also
their
Victor. There's also one Victor Bailey. Right,
oh yes, yes, of course. Victor Wooten. There's like so many of them.
right.
Crazy. Yeah.
So,
Then James Jamerson and all of those people from those era, no?
correct, correct.
Larry Graham,
Right,
James Jamerson, and all of them. So
right.
and bass players from bands like I don't know their names, but bands like Boney M, ABBA, and all that. They've also
Correct,
been you
right.
know such huge influences. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah. Sorry,
So,
you're
so
asking something.
in terms of gear, are you a person who's very particular about your gear? What kind of pickups you use, or what kind of strings, or are you someone that give me any bass, I'm good to go.
I think yeah. Give me any bass. I should sound like me. I mean, I think I definitely try because unless I sound like me, I mean, I have a sound, and at least as much as I know, okay, this is how I sound. So I would try my best to get that sound no matter which instrument I play. Of course, there's gonna be, but so like I told you initially, I would try all that's possible to get that sound
Sound.
that so but then apart from that, of course, I have my bass, and I've been using Ibanez, uh, the Prestige series and the Premium series, but I'm a little bigger fan of the Premium series.
Hmm.
I do have the Prestige as well, but then I love Nostrand pickups.
Hmm.
The somehow, of course, Bartolini's are great as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
but Nostrand, something about them, the Californian company. So
Okay.
I love the sound of Nostrand because
Hmm.
you get the lows that you require,
Okay.
and you have the definition as well,
Hmm.
that low mid definition
Hmm.
to know, and in every way, and you also get that pop. No, the string plays a very important role. So I
Right.
use Ernie balls.
Right. Right.
So Ernie ball, and I use the 45
Hmm.
to 130 gauge.
Okay.
That's my gauge.
Right.
So because initially I used to use 40
Hmm.
because it was easier. It's easier to pop and stuff.
It
But
bends
then the
also.
problem is,
Hmm.
yeah, easier to pop in. But then the problem is, it doesn't sound thick enough on recordings. It
Okay.
sounds weak, a little bit. Then I, of course, went and tried, 35 gauge.
Okay.
That's like almost like a C string, but then
Okay.
not every company makes it. But
Right.
then looking at Mark King, right? So he
Hmm.
uses a 35 gauge. So
Correct.
of course, I'm a huge fan of Mark King as well, a
Right.
huge
Right.
fan.
Correct.
So level 42. So I tried the 35, and 35 was, of course, I just used it hardly for a week. It's too thin, too difficult, almost like a guitar string. So then 40 for a long time I was using. It's easier to play, but then once I started recording more and more, then it was definitely a 45.
45. Okay.
It had to be a 45 to get. And again, on the low, 125, but then I usually use 130
Okay.
to get the nice fat thick sound, because
Hmm.
when you have that low B,
Hmm.
to get that sound, nothing less than 125, but 130 in generally standard.
Right.
So
So, speaking about low B, and also, how do you um, get the anything which is lower than E flat? So your low D, low C, and low B come out in the mix, especially for five string players. So I personally have for home recordings and all found it very difficult to bring that out in the mix. So any tips for that?
I mean, are you asking about how do you play it, or I didn't really get
Like,
the
how
question.
do you EQ it, or do you have you
Oh,
used the lower things in the any of the recordings, like
oh
D,
yeah, yeah,
C,
all the
and
time.
okay,
Yes,
okay,
yes, all the time, all the time. That's what I was telling. So that's why I use this 130 gauge,
okay,
because I mean, technically you should use a 125, because it's
right,
45, 65, 85, 105, and 125, right? That's
correct,
the
correct,
gap.
correct.
But then
That's
it's 45, 65, 85, 105, and 130. So
hmm,
that extra zero point 0.5 to give you that more thick sound.
correct,
And I mean, definitely, like, because when the song requires, the style of music requires, you know, like even when you play something like a hip hop genre or an R&B genre,
Hmm.
no, more of R&B, you need that low. Suppose there's a groove of dum, 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 dum. Maybe a groove with just two notes, just D E E D E
Got it.
O C B E. So B E. So of
Got
course,
it.
I'm using the Lobi all the time
Okay.
in recordings. So the one very important thing is, of course, the studio I record. I'm very particular in which studio I record.
Hmm.
I've got 2-3 studios.
Hmm.
That's my favorites in Chennai.
Hmm.
So I make sure, like, wherever the music director wants me to record. Of course, once you if it's a big music director, they have their own studios.
Hmm.
But apart from that, the other music directors, I would ask them to record me in one of these studios because they have super gears,
Okay.
very very high end gears and gadgets, which will bring out that sound. No,
Got it. Got it. Got it. So base
that's
wise,
very important.
do you use a 34 inch or a 35-inch scale base?
34,
34.
34.
So so
Yeah.
so basically, there's that also debate about 35 having, like, with 34 you can't get that punch out of that low B. So
Mhm.
but I think you are able to get that.
And, I don't know. I really, I don't understand the intricate details of the 34, 35. No,
Hmm.
you know. So really, even when it comes to wood and all that, I'm not.
Okay, so
I've
you're
not
not a
studied much.
gear person then.
I am, yeah, not very, like, because so much to do with the wood and all that.
Hmm.
So I know it's mahogany and it's this and that. I know the contents, but then I don't know how it impacts.
Okay.
As long as, I mean, what I do is I just see what wood it's made of, and then go study about the wood and what frequency it reacts well to,
Tones. Okay.
the tone, and then yeah. But then I have some friends who are like so good
Hmm.
at they know exactly what to deliver what sound. So
Got it. Got it. And also, speaking about marking, so there's this whole wave of headless bass going on right now. Like I
oh,
like I've been seeing a lot of my friends also who are musicians buying a headless one, or at least they are converting their bass into headless. So are you planning to get a headless anytime soon, or
I
not
don't know.
too much into that?
No, because I mean I'm a big fan of the small head. Like Ibanez is the small head, not like
Correct.
Fender, right?
Correct.
Not
Correct.
like the huge head which Fender
Correct.
has, or which
Correct.
Sadowski and all these basses have this
Right.
huge
Even
head.
the tuners are
But
like elephant ear tuners, big ones.
big, yeah, it's big. Yeah, it's big. I am more of a fan of course, I was using for a very, very long time when I initially shifted to India and all that. I kept using the Yamaha P bass, you know,
Okay, Yamaha
precision
PBS.
bass.
Oh,
Yamaha, yeah.
okay.
So the precision bass.
Hmm.
So I was using that for a very, very long time. So those are the huge ones, the
Right.
huge head, huge knobs and all that.
Correct.
And then, of course, once I shifted, but it's also not very easy playing the Ibanez because people think it's easy because the string
String
spacing is
spacing.
very,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's quite
I
difficult to slap and pop.
correct.
So a lot of bass players, even professional bass players, they ask me, they call and ask me, they're like, man, how do you like easily slap and pop? And very
Correct.
difficult. Like popping in the first string is easy, but
Correct.
then popping in the middle string is very tough. Like when you
Exactly.
want to pop the D.
Especially your double thumping and double popping, it's very, very difficult. Because even I have an Ibanez and I have a Yamaha BB as well. So Yamaha has a
Okay.
18 wider string spacing. Very easy to slap there. But Ibanez is very tricky. Especially Ibanez has another thing I've noticed. It rings. Like, it you're playing somewhere lower and suddenly your E string or B string is ringing. So your left hand muting should be really, really neat there. So
But yeah, that is another very important thing that bass players always have to like take into consideration or make a note of, because I mean they should be very careful when it comes to the string ringing, no, and
right, right.
buzzing play. Yeah, because it resonates, no, the string, like you play E on the fifth fret of the B string, then your E open is going to ring.
Hmm.
So you need to make sure it's so, because again, what made me focus a lot on clarity in playing is just because of recordings, no? Because
Got
when
it.
you record, it has to be crystal clear and clean, right? Only
Correct.
one note can ring, so should ring. So um, yeah, that I think I've been going and watching a lot of young bass players play, and I think they are not really considering it a lot, no.
Correct. Correct.
So for them, it's all about just playing. Just I need to
Correct.
play that lick, but then
Hmm.
how clean is that lick? That is not
Got it.
being focused on.
Understood. So there's a good tip here. Like, go back to the basics, but play it very clean. Okay. So
Exactly.
do you use fret traps or anything while recording to uh,
Yeah.
mute
Yes.
all this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I do use. Yes.
Okay.
But then fret trap is again. It's not like, I mean, a lot of times I play what I play without using it. Fret trap is there in my bass
Hmm.
only sometimes. Something
Got
really
it.
complex. Sometimes people want something very challenging like this. This is like
Hmm.
something very complex. Maybe I meant. Most of the times I don't even use it because
Correct.
even without that, your playing has to be clean, right?
Correct. Correct.
So that, yeah, I mean, all these years we've practiced that. So
Correct.
you
Correct.
know, so fret trap is there as an option, but
Correct.
then even without that, when you practice, like I like what Billy Sheehan also says, no, like he tries to play a lick, and if something is what he finds what is really tough in the lick, is it
Hmm.
his left hand fingering, is it the ring finger or the middle finger, what, or is it his, uh, the picking hand, which
Hmm.
finger, what is the problem, he'll concentrate, and then he'll make an exercise out of it.
Okay.
He comes up with an exercise which involves that. Like he says, for example, if his pinky is not very strong in the left
Hmm.
hand, he'll come up with an exercise which includes a lot of usage of the pinky finger, and keep on practicing that the whole day. And
Got
he's
it.
like, by the end of the day, or maybe a couple of days, his pinky will become really strong, and then he can play that lick easily.
Got it.
So he makes his own exercises according to the licks.
Okay. So I think that's a very good tip for someone, any bass player or even a guitarist listening to this or watching this video, is that, just to summarize what you told, if you're playing a piece, a particular line or a passage which is difficult, just break it down to that and just keep looping it, or, try to or make some kind of exercise out of it. Just keep concentrating on that. So that's a very good tip.
Because
Uh,
if you think of it, the whole entire lick is not going to be difficult. But when somebody says, "Oh man, that lick is tough," "Oh man, that lick is something," there's one
one
place
or
where
two
they get
parts.
stuck,
Correct.
one part, one somewhere. So that
Correct.
you need to what is that, and then work on that.
Correct.
Work just on that. Make
Right.
an but if you just work on that, it gets boring. So make an exercise.
Right.
Come up with different exercise which includes that, and so yeah, so that that
I
would
can
help.
relate to that. So while I was learning all around the world, when I was learning RHCP, so there's one part, that part is a bit difficult. So
Correct.
that one thing you keep doing it, over and over and over again. So I can relate how that really helps. So that's the only one thing which is a bit difficult in the entire song.
Exactly.
So I think preparing yourself before going to a studio, you have already covered that. Wherein basically you told me that you just go there, and that's when you open the chord chart, listen to the song, and make a call while recording. So there's no prep work that you practically do while going to a studio.
No.
So now,
But then it's just the opposite when it comes to a gig. Exactly the opposite. When I
right,
go to a gig,
because it's a one shot there. Hmm.
yeah. But before the rehearsal, when I go for a rehearsal, I go with the whole chart prepared.
Hmm.
Like once I had a concert and this music director had asked me, that's the first time I'm playing with him. He's a huge, uh, uh, he's a big music director, and I mean he's hugely popular and super content also.
Hmm.
It was a huge concert.
Yeah.
Almost his gigs are like almost goes up to 4 hours.
Hmm.
And initially, when I went to play for the first time,
Hmm.
uh, they gave me the set list, and it had almost 60 songs.
Okay.
And I sat for 2 to 3 nights without sleeping
Okay.
and wrote the entire 60 songs. When I went for the first day of rehearsal, first day ever,
Hmm.
all the musicians are there and they're like, man, did you listen to the song? I mean, have you heard the song? Yeah, a lot of stuff. No, okay. Of course, we're not going to play all the 60 songs. There's
Hmm.
no time for that. You might play 35, 30 songs, 35, 40 songs maybe at the most.
Hmm.
But then, people are discussing about, okay, let's select what songs to do from this.
Hmm.
But then when they came to me, I mean, when they just checked with me, I
Hmm.
had all the 60 songs down
Hmm.
in the chart,
Nice.
all of them. Of course, that took me like I had to sit for three, maybe 2 or 3 whole nights.
Hmm.
I start from 12 in the night and go till 6 in the morning
Okay.
of writing, and then again the next day night 12. This is after recording the whole day, doing all
Okay.
your work. You come back home, finish dinner, and sit at
And
12
then
in the night
prepare.
till 6 in the morning. I write, then take a 1 hour nap, get up at 7 again, take a shower, and leave.
Okay.
Again come, so I sleep for 1 hour, 2 hours a day, you know. So like I said, it's a lot of hard work. It's not
Right.
easy at all.
I mean, so for people watching, so for us, it's like a concert. Just we just come in and watch the musicians and go. But behind the curtains, the kind of practice and efforts that you guys put in, that also, I have a question. So, say a composer approaches you to play gigs for him. Do you guys have to transcribe the bass lines, or do they give notation?
This is for the gig or for the recording?
For the gig, like for example, some
Oh yeah.
for example, someone like say, just hypothetically, someone like a Harris Jarraj comes and tells you, I'm gonna play say 20 songs of mine. So do they give you the baseline notations, or it's your job to listen to the songs and transcribe it and come prepared for the gig
it's
or
our
all the
job
way?
to it's our job to listen and transcribe.
Oh, like, so
Complete.
uh, I
A lot
mean,
of hard work, not easy.
transcribing basis, I mean, like, do you have any tips to how do
it
you?
is it is it is exactly like you said. It is quite challenging because especially when it comes to the low frequency, sometimes some low, you're not sure, is it E or E flat,
Hmm,
is that C or C sharp, that
exactly.
sounds like a C.
Yeah, the more
Sounds
lower the frequency goes, the it's very difficult to
good to
distinguish the
hear.
intervals. Like,
Correct, correct.
see, it's very difficult.
So
So
that is quite it's quite frustrating. So you need to, so of course it makes your hearing as well very good, but then that whole doubt of C sharp, sometimes sometimes if you check my charts, I'll write it and keep it as a C in bracket C sharp.
hmm,
So it's maybe a C or maybe a C sharp.
hmm,
But again, I check, then what I do is immediately I in my mind I roll off the bass and
hmm,
listen to the chord that's being played.
hmm,
If it's an A7th, I know
hmm.
it is not a C. I know it's a C
Correct,
sharp.
correct.
If it's an A minor seventh, I know it's a C. It's not a
Hmm,
C sharp. So
hmm,
I'll listen to what the other instruments are playing,
hmm,
or check out the line that's being played on top of it.
hmm,
What does it have, and so connect with that. So most of the time, very very rarely, some one out of like I don't know, 1,000 songs or something, where you're not sure. Maybe that I'll just put it in bracket and keep it,
hmm,
and maybe check with the arranger or whoever. But otherwise, yeah, you listen to the other instruments and
hmm.
you know what it is. But you need to transcribe the whole thing.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a huge task. Especially, I think bass player needs to be paid extra for transcription, because keyboards, drums, to okay, like you just listen to it and play. Keyboards, flute, and all those instruments, it's pretty. Even if you have a mobile phone, you can listen to it and you can just write
Straightforward,
down
yeah.
the notes. But first of all, to listen to bass, you need to have a good set of headphones and all those process, and then sit down, transcribe. And yeah, I can only
Correct.
imagine.
Correct. Very, very true. And um, also, I mean, I can tell you this gig I was telling you about, the first time I went and played, and this composer. So I'm also a big fan of his. So I really like his music a lot, and so when you play with such big people, your parts have to be correct, right? You can't guesswork.
Correct,
You
correct,
better be right.
right, right.
Otherwise, yeah, otherwise it doesn't. So I think, see, that's also a beautiful thing, because it makes you a good musician on the whole. Being a bass player, I'm saying,
Right.
because like you said, maybe a flautist or maybe anybody, a violinist or somebody would just listen in the mobile and just listen to their line, and they just need to know that, write it down, and okay. But then as a bass player, you need to listen to the whole music. You need to listen to what the other instruments are playing
Correct.
to get a context of, oh, that is E. I think that
Correct.
is E. I think, when
Correct.
it goes very low. So I think you're all the time listening to the other instruments as well. So, and
Mm.
also one very important thing I say everywhere in every workshop, wherever I go, I say this. Why I so love this instrument is the role that a bass plays. Okay. So I've been playing a lot with orchestras,
Mm.
like with British orchestras
Okay.
and
Mm.
American orchestras in back in the Gulf.
Mm.
So there's something called the big bands, where
Right.
you have
Right.
a big band where they play musicals. So I've played a lot of
Mm.
musicals.
Mm.
Musicals is you know what a musical is. So
Right.
it's so much of chart reading. Like
Right.
one, it's almost like you'll have 150 pages to
Right.
read
Mm.
throughout the concert, or maybe 200 pages
Mm.
of reading from start to finish. And the when you look at a
Mm.
band or a big band or an orchestra,
Mm.
you have the harmonic section, and
Mm.
then you have the rhythmic section, correct?
Right.
Or the melodic section and the rhythmic section.
Mm.
Okay, so now uh, the strings, the the woodwinds, the horns, the brass, all these come, the flute, the
Mm.
violins, all this come under the melodic section
Melodic.
or the harmonic section.
Right.
Rhythm is your drums, obviously drums, percussion,
Percussions.
and
Right.
the guitar.
Mm.
Okay, the guitars,
Right.
the rhythm guitars, and all this comes under rhythm, including the piano, including the keyboards.
Correct.
They all come under the rhythm section
Correct.
because they are comping, and they are giving the rhythm. So what is that one thing that connects them both? It's the bass.
Correct.
Bass is the bridge that connects, because also when I record, I always prefer recording bass in the end. Most
Mm.
of the time, after the bass recording, it will be going for the mix. So I
Correct.
record
Correct.
even after the singer sings most of the
Makes
times.
sense. Makes sense.
So
Very, I mean, very, very interesting point, and completely makes sense. Like, I think any of the bassists watching this one can relate. Like, they'll know the reason why you said that. It,
yeah, I think that's a very important thing, because I mean, I also prefer that way, because whenever somebody calls me, I'd ask them, okay, I prefer to come in the end, last and record, because what happens is, like again I said, you have the guitars would have played, or the keyboardist would have programmed, and then you have the rhythm programmer. Most of the times it's not live, so it's rhythm programmed and all this. So you will have the kick accents in different places,
correct.
and you'd have the percussionist playing.
Right.
So the one of the percussion would fall different, and the kick would be at a different place. Then
Correct.
you have the guitar vamping in a different place, all in different accents, and it's the bass that puts them all
You have to
together,
glue together all those things. Mm.
glue them all together.
Plus, you also
So
have a choice now that you have the choice that I'll follow percussions or drums. Then in between, should I follow the vocal line? More choices if you choose to record bass at the end.
exactly, because see, when we go and when we start recording, the first thing is, okay, can I listen to the song, listen to the groove? What is the kick pattern? What is the drums playing on the whole? What is the percussion playing? These two make up the rhythm mainly, right?
Right.
So on the whole, what are they playing? Okay, write them down. Oh, okay, that's a dotted crotchet, followed by a quaver. It's a tight
Mm.
semi-quavers and whatever. Okay, this is the approach. But then, so you lock with that, but then at the
Right.
same time, that's one side happening rhythmically,
Mm.
but then at the same time you need to move the chords, and
Right.
then here, okay, can you play with the guitar, can you play with the keys, what are the keys playing, okay, what is the guitar playing, oh, this chord, oh, it's an A seventh over C sharp, okay, okay, what happens, okay, here let me use an inversion, let me play a substitution, and so
Right.
harmonically also you're working,
Correct.
and I have to come up with some lines. You're playing a fill, so I play a fill on this. I'm playing a fill on the E minor nine. Okay, it's gonna be an E minor nine followed by what chord? An A seven. Okay, now what is that one note that's common for an E minor nine? and A7. Uh, what if I take a C sharp? C sharp is there in A7, but E minor 9 doesn't have a C sharp.
Hmm.
So I would convert the chord into an E minor 9 6,
Hmm.
okay, or a 6 9, E minor
Correct.
6 9, which would have a C sharp as well.
Correct.
So these kinds of things, it's just beautiful. And then maybe
Correct.
followed by E minor 6 9 to maybe let me take the seventh of that E minor 9. So that would be a D,
Correct.
and that becomes the 11th of the A7.
Correct.
No,
Correct.
so or it becomes an A7 sus4.
Right.
So
So you can
all this kind of
practically you can also change the chord by just you playing one note. Like
exactly. That's again why I love this instrument, because everybody can play. See, like you're having E minor seventh happening, but if the bass player moves from E, he moves the second bar. If he moves to a D, then the whole chord becomes an E minor seven over D.
correct. Correct.
And then in the third bar, if you move to a C sharp, it becomes an E minor seven over C sharp.
Correct.
And so you decide the name of the chord. So that's
Correct.
why
Correct. Correct. Correct.
I
Very true.
love
Very
the
true.
bass. So
So
what
so
I'm saying is,
yeah, yeah.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, it's a lot of harmony thinking, that's happening. I don't say it out. You don't say it out, but a lot of, because you can't just come up with lines like the
Correct.
line has to make sense. So it's like, okay, I'll play 11, I'll play followed by this. Should I play a 13 or no? I don't. If I'm playing a 13, it's a 7. If I play without the 7, that becomes a sixth. Okay, and okay, that's a chord. What is the next chord? Now, how do I connect? What is prominent between them? And all this is happening on one side. But whatever lines I'm coming up with, I need to also lock with the kick
Correct.
drum, the percussion that's happening.
Right.
So putting them all together and then coming up with it. So it's a finished product, and all this happens in your 2 to 3 hours or 3 to 4 hours in the studio, no?
Awesome.
So
Like again for people watching, one like I and Naveen before the interview were also like before starting the recording we were also having a chat that now since all these music companies are also giving credits to guys like Naveen, all you need to do is just go on, type Naveen Kumar Napier Peter or Naveen Kumar bass. You'll have list of songs where he has played. Like YouTube has this algorithm where it will automatically. So next time start noticing these details. How the bass is played. So it's much more fun that way. So
I also think
what is your
the recording.
yeah, please
Oh,
please.
sorry. No, I think also the recording thing, like I was saying, the whole approach is changed completely from what it used to be. Because
Correct.
now the young music directors, all of them are very experimental, and the whole approach is different. Like the music director sits with you, and
Hmm.
you're having coffee together with the music director,
Right, right.
and they'll be like, okay, listen to this song,
Hmm.
okay, and some of the music directors, most of them, they make me watch the movie itself.
Hmm.
In the sense, not the whole movie, the song.
Right,
So they'll be like, this is the song. Now, what do you think works? So
right.
when I'm starting to record,
Hmm.
I also have a visual understanding. So like what you were saying, sometimes this elevated the scene.
Correct, correct,
Some played here made sense. That's
right,
because of the impact that you get.
correct.
S- Most of them tell me the story of the film. They tell me
Hmm.
the story of the song. So whatever the story is, according to that exactly. So when you play with an understanding of the story, the whole approach is very different, right?
Amazing, amazing. So, how does your in terms of your gear and signal chain, how does your live setup and your studio setup look like? Do you go directly into the computer, or do you have your own compressors and all those pedals?
When it's live, yeah, when it's live, I have my preamp. I have
Hmm.
my, actually not my preamp, it's my power amp. I
Okay,
use a GK,
okay.
Gallium Kruger, 500
Hmm.
watts power amp, and but then most of the time, when you have like when it comes to the studio,
Hmm.
I used to initially carry my power amps and all, but then it's not required
Hmm.
because they have super gears, right?
Hmm.
So once you plug in, like first of all, it all depends on the sound card, and you go in through so many gadgets, so
Right.
the sound is really really good. You don't really need, because the preamps are very good, so you go through various preamps,
Hmm.
and your sound is fine. Like I say, the only thing is the end result, no, before I start playing, that sound I need to hear,
Hmm.
whether it's live or whether it's here. Live, of course, most of the time I do most of the tweaking with the
Got it.
amp, the preamp and all that. I do the tweaking, but then in the studio, it's mostly the engineer who does it.
Hmm.
And I think mostly it is the controls that you have on your instrument.
Hmm.
Like it's the bass, the EQ in the bass,
Got
the
it.
pickup
Got
that
it.
you select. Yeah. So are you gonna keep a blend of the neck and the bridge, or are you gonna go fully neck, or are you gonna go bridge somewhere?
Got it.
I can't even say how important this is. I It's like become second nature because
Got it.
we've been doing it for so long. But then without that, I don't start recording.
Plus,
So
I
I
think
can't.
unlike your typical uh, your passive Fender P bass or a jazz bass, your the Ibanez ones that you mentioned, it has multiple permutation combinations. I think it has EQ boosts and all, like two EQ switches and all. So I think it's much more difficult in your gear to get that exact tone.
So you actually have a preamp in your bass itself, right? So you have
Correct.
a three band EQ, and you can boost anything, you can cut anything, and then you've got this like the Ibanez has also the the mid switch where you
Correct.
can
Exactly.
select
Right.
250 hertz boost,
Right.
750 hertz boost and all that. So like while listening to the song, while doing the sound check, I'm all the time checking. I mean, you can imagine I'm playing every day,
Hmm.
almost every day we are recording or playing something, but every time, depending on, because for live it's the venue,
Hmm.
according to the venue, right? Open air
Correct.
is different, door is different, and sometimes too much of boom, you cut down on the lows and all
Correct.
that.
Because
So
acoustics and
exactly. So all the time I'm checking with, does this pickup work? I think for this neck is working better. No, I think for this neck and bridge together works better. And then I think, okay, now should I boost the 250 hertz? Would that be better, or should I boost the 500 hertz? You know,
got it.
most of the time I don't use the 750, but then either 250 or the 500. And then should I give a slight tweak on the highs or not? And
Hmm.
so, like, I can't even tell you, man, like when I'm,
Right.
you know uh, the
I
sound
can
thing is something.
understand. Right. Right. So I think for people who are watching this video, who are especially musicians who play other instruments, for them, for their understanding, like I would want to bring it out that bass is one instrument which has a very wide dynamic range. So especially for guys like Naveen, when they're playing live, live setting, it's very difficult to get that frequency, because every venue, if it's an open air, it's a different thing. If it's a live venue where there is probably more corners, so your sound is bouncing the way, like so many things. So bass is very very difficult to get that exact good tone, especially for live venue. So and even in recordings, like there are, so like obviously, like if it's a violin, flute, or these instruments, it's much more easy there to make it sit in the mix. But for bass, again, like guys like Naveen, really really they struggle to get that perfect frequency, right, EQ and all those things.
I think the engineer matters a lot,
Correct.
because I'm all time checking when they book me for a gig. Okay, who's the engineer? Because when it's a live gig, I mean, you're at the mercy of the engineer, right? Because
Correct.
you
Correct.
can do to an extent. Okay, you give a clean sound that comes out, but then what the crowd is listening, the FOH and all is completely
Right.
at the engineer's
Correct.
thing.
Correct. Correct.
So I'm very very particular of who is the
Absolutely.
engineer.
Right. And especially with
I
the,
know.
at times probably your, first two strings might be, okay. But then again, probably on the higher ends, it might not be audible, or the other way around. Like, with
Other
bass,
way
it's
around.
very, very difficult to
True,
get the entire frequencies be heard.
true, very true. Yeah, very true.
So, so
It is a challenge because you also are getting in the way, like the kick is there, right?
hmm,
So the kick, and for example, one of the songs I remember, it's I recorded long back for Harris Jayaraj sir.
hmm,
And it was this film called Tupaki,
hmm,
Vijay starring.
hmm,
And there was a song sung by Bombay Jayashree and Hari Haran.
hmm, hmm,
And that song is a very slow, very groovy song.
hmm,
It has Gattam in it. Okay,
hmm.
Gattam has so much of low end.
Low end,
So
correct.
I recorded the bass, And you know, later I was, of course, I'm a huge fan, and I mean all of us are, of
Mm.
uh, Mr. Harris Gerard's sound.
Mm.
His sound
Correct.
is just so good.
Right, right.
Like, yeah, one of the best
His
sound in the
mix
country.
is also very, very clean mix. Like
One of the
there's
best.
only he'll
Yeah,
only have things which is required. Like there's nothing extra. Very clean mix.
yeah, that's it. And I mean, nobody can make it sound so clean as him. Unbelievably clean. Like, it's totally something else.
Mm.
So I was very curious to know, okay, how this is gonna sound. And then I waited for the film to release and all. Then it came out. Of course, one thing is I don't listen to the songs that I play.
Mm.
That's like, I don't because I think we are every time we are recording something new, so I don't listen to it much unless somebody forces me to.
Mm.
So music director calls me and says like, okay,
Mm.
this song is it's a super hit. Please listen to this. Then maybe, but otherwise I don't listen to it. Or maybe in the FM when you're driving in the car, sometimes you just switch on FM and suddenly, song sounds nice, and suddenly I'll be like, okay, man, I'll be thinking every time you listen to any music, ideas keep running in your head, and I'm like, oh man, this bass player is playing very much like, very similar to what I'm thinking, and then by the end of the song I realize, oh
I played this.
she, I played. Sometimes I don't even realize. Some songs I would love it and I'd make a note of the name. Later come home and go watch it in YouTube. Then
Mm.
go down and see the credits and oh, that's my name. Okay. So I
Interesting.
recorded long back. So yeah, because a lot of songs we record a year back gets released later. Like
Correct.
uh, even just for fun, Kuti Story was recorded in 2020 February. Now it's 2021 February.
Right.
So
Almost a year.
a
Yeah.
year, yeah.
Mm.
So I mean, but apart from that, so a lot of songs we record couple of years back and all that. So like that. So I don't listen to the songs that I actually work on.
Mm.
But then this particular song, I was very curious because I'm like, okay, and then I heard the song, and the low end was so much
Mhm.
that there's no way the bass can enter. There's no bass in the starting of the song. I'm like, okay, no way the bass can come, and it's not lacking in the bass. It's so full. The guttum has so much low end. I was thinking, how is the bass gonna come? Where is
Mm.
the bass going to be heard? You can't believe how much I couldn't wait
Mm.
for the charnam part to come, because that's where the bass comes in, I guess. And when the bass comes in, it's so clear and so audible. You know how Mr. Harris Gerard's sound is.
Right.
It's
Right.
so clear.
Right.
It's right there on the front,
Mm.
and the guttum is also there. I
Mm.
just don't know how he could manage to separate it. That is like sure brilliance.
Correct.
So it
That's a
is,
very
yeah,
valid point. Like, in order to like handling bass is a skill in itself, be it if you are a composer or an engineer, like both. Like, you should know how to handle
totally,
bass.
totally, and not everybody can do that. Not
Correct,
everybody.
correct.
Very, very few people.
I mean,
So
talking
very, very
about Mr. Harris Gerald, one of his favorite, like one of I personally like the Vasigara song, like very simple
oh
bass
yeah,
line, but it's as if someone is kicking on your chest. That is the level of punch it has, like the
the
bass.
clarity, yeah, it's mad. Like once even I was talking to Mr. Santosh Narayanan,
Mm.
and I mean a lot of people comment. No, a lot of people. Like even once. I mean, it's a new trend that's happened. Like once somebody called me, a music director called me and said, "Hey, have you seen people covering Tamil songs on
Mm.
the bass?
Mm.
And so I went and checked out, and a lot of people send me stuff
Mm.
as well.
Mm.
It's very very heart touching and very nice, because like I was explaining to you, the hard work that goes behind, so much we break our head
Correct, correct.
in making something, and then when somebody listens to it
Mm.
and likes it, and then tries to reinterpret it, it's such a joy, to watch
Correct.
that. So once I was talking about some particular song,
Mm.
and everyone are telling me how the bass is like cutting through, and I mean, like people kept on asking me.
Mm.
So I was talking to Mr. Santosh Narayan, and I told him, people just love this particular song and how the bass,
Hmm.
is sounding and all that. So and then he explained to me how he processed the
Oh.
bass, what
Okay.
like how he send it to what signals, what
Hmm.
how he puts it into this mixer and then takes an out from that and then puts it into this preamp and then takes an out from that. So that is just like so that's how you hear it.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
so clear. you know Even recently, the song what is that, Rakita, no? It's
Hmm.
a famous song
Correct.
that
Yeah.
came out. It was a super hit song with Dhanush. So that was recorded from my home. I recorded it from my home from this
Oh,
same
really?
MacBook Pro. I
Okay.
recorded it from my MacBook Pro.
Hmm.
So it was very unique experience because Santosh Narayan, the music director, was in one place,
Hmm.
and then the engineer who recorded it was in the studio in another place, and I was recording the bass
Hmm.
from my home in another place.
Hmm.
We are like all in three different places,
Hmm.
and everything was done online. The
Okay.
whole session,
Hmm.
3 to 4 hours. So uh, I mean, technology has advanced so much.
Correct.
But then what he could do from, I'm not even in the studio, so
Hmm.
I'm just sending him signal from my
Hmm.
home studio
Hmm.
output. But then he takes it and what he does with it,
Hmm.
it's crazy. Even Buji, that song was recorded.
Hmm.
That's such high sound, class
Hmm.
sound.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, I mean, the gadgets they use, and I mean, you need to have that ear. You
Correct.
know,
Correct. Making.
once when I was recording with the Harris Gerald for one particular song, he almost took uh, an hour or more than an hour to just set my sound. We
Okay.
didn't record. We didn't even start the first bar. Just the tone, setting the tone, an hour almost, or maybe slightly more than an hour. Once it was done, the recording is like fast, half an hour maybe. But then setting the tone more than an hour. That's why
So,
it's
I
so clear.
mean, it's so amazing to know that, so many things. It's a whole process, like before recording, and then you record, and then post recording, all, how they treat the sound in the post, and like it's a whole process. And then the
Like,
song comes out.
like this particular experience, like I was sitting in this. I mean, Harris Gerald, sir, he's got the craziest studio, one of the biggest studios and craziest studios in Asia, right?
Hmm.
It's one
Correct.
of the top in the world, top
Correct.
10, one among the top 10 in the world, I think.
Right.
So when I got like, I mean, I am so much about sound and all that. I'm very particular, but then even I lost it after an hour. I was like, okay, man, like I
Hmm.
mean, uh, almost for half an hour, I couldn't even hear a note because
Hmm.
he had kept it on mute.
Hmm.
The whole thing was on mute. He just kept connecting this to that, that to this, going to this. I'm like, okay, what is he trying? What is,
Hmm.
And then finally, when you hear the sound,
Hmm.
he told me, okay, Naveen, just tell me if you ever heard a sound like this. And then he played me. It's just that magic, no? And I had to be honest with him. I said, I've never heard my bass sound like this. So, you know, so like that, it's crazy. The sound that goes behind.
So, like, can you just throw some of your favorite bass lines? Like, not obviously, it need not be something that you played per se. Anything like, just top of your mind, some of your favorite bass lines.
A lot of fleece bass lines, I think.
Okay, okay.
A lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers, and
Got it.
uh, of course Marcus Miller, Victor Wooten for sure. I mean, those are all of course super heavy. Why I particularly like Flea is because it's funk, right?
Correct,
It's funk music, and like when you say Victor Wooten or Marcus Miller, it's more bass heavy,
correct.
correct? But this is a funk genre, and Flea makes the bass fit in so well,
The mids.
and gives it the importance. Yeah, that's totally a super thing, a brilliant thing. So that's why I love his lines, a lot of his lines. Um, and then of course, nothing particular in mind, no
Got it.
bass line.
Understood.
Yeah,
So you're
I
also
love the
talking
groove.
about, sorry?
I'm more about the groove. I'm more about the
Okay,
groove. I love the groove.
okay.
But then I think a lot of people say I play a lot of lines also. My playing has maybe evolved into a lot of lines, playing lines. You know. So
Got it.
yeah, sorry, you
You're
were asking something.
you're also talking about technology, how it is. So there are, every day, the VST guys, like virtual instrument companies, they are stepping up a notch. Like, the more it's, in fact, I downloaded few samples from one of the libraries. It's
Okay.
it's as close as someone a live bassist tracking it, like the MIDI instruments. So what's your take on it? Like, I mean, you know better than anyone. So do you think, because see, we know for a fact that at least the rhythm section has been, slowly being replaced by virtual instruments. Bass has, luckily been one thing that, it's very difficult to produce that, so far. I think the one problem with the programmed bass so far generally has been it's not able to deliver that big rounded sound which your live playing can give. So, like, do you think in near future the
Actually, I don't think so, because in the sense, program based. If I mean, to just let you know, lot of songs are program based. You know that. Like even in films, most of the time I play one song in a film or two songs in a film, but they've got, like, a film has 4 5 songs at least.
correct, correct,
So
correct.
most of them are programmed.
Hmm.
Most of them program. Like, of course, sometimes when you go and record a track with
Hmm.
somebody like Santosh Nayan or Harris Jayaraj
Hmm.
or somebody like that, the bass is programmed already.
Okay.
After you go to
Like,
the studio, they mute the bass and then they take your bass.
right, right.
When I listen to it, I'll be like, man, it sounds so good.
Hmm.
Like, what are you gonna record? Why do you want to record me? Seriously, that's the thought.
Right,
I,
right.
of course, I can't ask them that way,
Hmm.
but then, I mean, casually, I'll also tell them jokingly, like, okay, this
Hmm.
sounds so good. Why do you wanna,
Correct.
like, what should I play? I mean, I don't know,
Right,
because it'll sound so good.
right.
It'll sound almost real, and I mean, it perfectly fits the song. But so, um, what
So
I
where's the
think.
difference then? Like, where do the musicians come into place? What difference do they bring in?
Okay, so what I think is, I mean, like the bass being programmed is not now. It's been done from the 90s.
Correct, correct.
You
Like
know,
Malare Maunama and all those things and all are also, you know,
crazy bass
correct.
lines,
Hmm.
but then
All
it's
programmed.
programmed. So yeah, it's been done for a very long time.
Right.
So, but one thing is, of course, like now drummers have been completely replaced. Very very hardly you have a live drummer playing. You
Correct.
know that song is Siriki Vasam?
Right. Right.
That was live drums.
Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
one of yeah, so a song like very very particular, very, it's not too often you
Hmm.
have songs where it's very rare almost nowadays. It's completely
Probably
programmed. That's
because
why
of the
all
logistic reason, like, recording the drum set is a altogether a different thing.
getting a
Miking and
miking
all.
done, and all that. Yeah.
Right.
So, and to get a good sound, that's the main problem. So
Correct.
rather, yeah. So that's why most of the drummers have shifted to rhythm programming,
Programming. Right.
and they can only play in live. But then when it comes to recording in terms of bass, what I feel is, uh, I keep telling everyone, uh, I'm waiting for the day when they'd call me and say, okay, we want to do a session with you. Where are you? Oh, I'm not in the country. Okay, that's cool. Can we just do the session on the phone?
Hmm.
You know. So I think that's not too far away, is what
Right.
I feel personally. Why? Because I think even now when we're being called, I think you're paid for your ideas
Hmm.
more than you're playing.
Correct. Correct. True. True.
So how creative can you get, and what idea, what can you put? Because like I told you, when I go and listen to any song, almost uh, there's maybe 1 in 100 songs where it's empty without the bass. Most of the time the bass is already there.
Correct.
I go last to record, but then the
Correct.
bass is already there, and then they mute the bass and then they take me. So now if I go and play, I just play the groove, I lock everything together and play. That's not required, they've already done that.
Correct.
So you need to come up with something
Idea.
different to
Right.
give it the song, yes, and add more color, more beauty to the song.
Correct.
So it is how creative you get.
Got it.
And if you can't be creative, I don't think you're gonna be called for the next session.
Got it.
So as long as you are creative, you can be guaranteed of your sessions, I think. I know you'll be called for your next session, but then once you lose, because that's how it is. No, when they call you, they'll be like, okay, this is what is there,
Hmm.
and like I told you, the bass that's already programmed is perfectly locking.
Correct.
With the kick and everything, and it's going with the chords. Everything is perfect. Now, what can you play? What can you play different? You
Correct.
know, like this famous saying, something different.
Correct.
What can you bring to the table
Correct.
that's different? So, so that's why I think, they'll give you a call and they'll be like, you don't have to actually come to the studio and play. Just
Mhm.
listen to the song and, just give us some ideas, play and send, and, and then they can maybe call another bass player
Mhm.
and make him play that again. And I don't know, but it's more of, so it's all about being creative. I think that's where it is going now. It's going more into the future of being very, very creative.
Amazing, amazing. I
And
mean,
it's not easy, like it's not that simple as it sounds, because I'll tell you what, one of my biggest challenges is you play songs, and like you're saying, you play songs and the bass is highlighted in a lot of songs, like, I mean, the bass is well heard, and people start playing covers of songs, right?
right,
So you have your lines, you
right.
play fills. Now when you play another song, you can't repeat
Do the
yourself,
same.
correct?
Right, right.
It's going to be again E minor. If the song is in the key of E, it's going to be E, A, B. It's going to be the same chords, right? Because
Right,
you only have 7 to 12. You have
right,
12 tones, and those chords are going to repeat.
right,
Now, you have to keep coming up with different lines every
right.
time. So
Plus with
that's
the obviously the pros and cons of accessibility to information. Like probably 10 or 15 years before YouTube, probably people might it would have been difficult for people to know how does a double thumb work, how does how does marking does his triplets. But now it's very easy for each and every one of us to quickly learn that. So probably you come up with a technique, like if it's a Naveen Kumar technique, the next day probably someone else like me might start copying that, and so now you have to do something different the third day. So
correct.
reinventing yourself every day,
Yeah.
it's a challenge. Yeah,
I think
challenge.
it's a big challenge. It's a good thing.
Right.
I mean, not repeating yourself is the biggest challenge, I feel,
Correct. Correct. So
because
that
you're so
brings me.
muscle memory driven that, you will repeat sometimes your favorite licks, your favorite phrases, what you played only, but you should be very careful not to.
Correct. So,
Yeah.
that brings me to the last, the closing phase of this chat, wherein, I have two, questions for you. One is, and both of them to help a lot of, semi-pro musicians, or what you call as weekend musicians, people who do weekend gigs. One thing is, uh, guys like us, it's very easy for us to get, demotivated. Uh, for example, someone who's not a fully into, music, after a while, you just lose that groove, that, you lose the touch of practice. And then there's weeks where you don't touch the instrument, be it any instrument. That is one. And yeah, like followed by that is the other question is, how what is your overall, quick tips for aspiring musicians?
Okay. um I think I mean, you are saying you'll get discouraged, huh? Like,
Yeah, like point one is, how do you stay motivated, like because I'll tell you. So as a kid, I remember, when we used to not have YouTube and all. So the moment you used to have all your music videos on a CD. So you probably put a RHCP CD, you watch a music video, then you have this high that you have this thought, I'm gonna rule the world now. You pick the guitar, whatever level of playing you are, but at least you are motivated enough to play the instrument, right? But now there's
correct.
so much. Every day you are listening, like every day one is watching a Billy Sheehan, Marcus Miller. So now we have been desensitized, so it's very difficult for us to keep motivating ourselves. So,
Okay. I
so
I I don't
okay.
know
So I
how.
think probably since you have not gone through that, I think it might be very difficult for you to even comment on that thing.
Yeah,
So
but then again, like kind of to relate to that. For example, I recently had a recording last week, and like I told you, I slapped. I had to play a slap pop thing after a very long time. It
hmm,
was, I don't know since when was the last time I did that. So I was playing. It was at a very fast tempo, BPM more than 150, 152 around that range,
hmm,
and so quite challenging. And we came up with something, and some licks really worked,
hmm,
and I was so like inspired playing that itself. Suddenly, so much of nostalgia happening. I was just shifted back to when I was in my grade 10,
hmm,
when I used to sit and practice like crazy,
hmm,
practice like a maniac. Like I don't know how many hours a day.
hmm,
Just every time I finished studying, it used to be just music till midnight, 2, 3, 4.
hmm,
My parents would think I'm sleeping, but then I'd be like quietly sitting and working on something. And so that whole thing. So now, I mean, when I came out, people were talking, and they're like, "Man, okay, like, wow, when are you finding the time to practice, man? Like now you have a baby, and
hmm.
how do you manage this and that, and how and all this." But then only I know the secret. Whatever I played was all practiced when I was in grade 10
Okay, okay.
or grade 9, grade 10, 11. At that time, no,
So the
that
foundation.
intensive practice I did,
Hmm,
the foundation. So now I'm 35, and when I was in grade 10, I was 15. So that's like just 20 years back.
right.
Whatever I work is really helping me today, you know. So that's why I tell a lot of youngsters, don't ever get discouraged or demotivated, because people are like, okay, man, I've been practicing, I've been playing for so long. I mean, I'm playing, practicing, but I don't know when, it's gonna, no, yeah, I don't know when it's gonna come out and all that. But then when you never know when it's gonna make sense to you. It could make sense to you 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. So, and I think, like I told recently listening to JD Beck, like, inspired me so much.
Right.
And listening to, um, you know something, I think you need to find yourself some music that is really gonna push you,
Got it.
make you want to play. I think so. I guess.
Nice. So
What
Naveen,
is
I
the
think
other thing you asked?
yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Like one, I think you have covered both part of it. Like one was the motivating factor. The other one was a tip to aspiring musicians. So
Correct.
right. So anything
And I
apart
think,
from
yeah,
that would you want
yeah,
to
just
share?
the tip meaning, I think two words that really have always stuck to me. That's discipline and dedication.
Okay.
So it's very important, these two things, because can't ever emphasize the importance of that. Because discipline is very important, because that is what is going to take you a long way, and never falter. And then dedication is, of course, I mean, how can you emphasize more on that?
Correct.
Do anything with all your heart, whatever you do, right? So I tell people, like, again, coming back to that 15 years old,
Hmm.
when I was 15, 16, the way I used to practice in my room all alone when nobody was at home,
Hmm.
and all that craziness and all that. I mean, at that time, I never knew I'm gonna end up being a professional musician.
Hmm.
I never knew I'm gonna be a bass player, and all that. But I was just so much in love with this instrument, and I was just playing whatever I did with all my heart. So
Got it.
that
Without
really,
any expectation, probably way back.
yes, yes, exactly. So you reap what you sow, correct? And you just don't know when, but then you will. So whatever you do, do it with all your heart and do it truthfully.
Hmm.
Then for sure, you will, yeah. Because expectation is always a big, uh, discourager, right?
Correct. Correct.
Because, yeah, when your
That's true.
expectations fail, that then, yeah, you get demotivated. So
Right. So the bottom line is like unconditionally practice. Don't expect anything. Just keep practicing. That's
exactly, that's a nice way of saying it. Yes.
So thank you
Okay.
so much, Naveen, for your time. I think it's call for dinner time for you, if I'm not wrong. People are calling you
Okay.
for dinner. I can see, left from left, right, everyone's calling you. So thank you so much for your time. It was really pleasure having, chatting with you up close.
Sure,
And
sure.
also one last thing, guys.
Most welcome. Thank you so
There's
much.
an interesting video of Naveen speaking about how, in the initial interview, he spoke about recovering from an accident. There's a video on YouTube where he's explaining the entire process, irrespective of the faith that you belong to. It's the his story is an inspiration. So your story especially is a testimony of sheer dedication, belief, and faith in something like it be it God or anything. Your story is really inspiring. So I would urge people to go check out that particular video. In fact, I'll also link that video while I'm
Thank you.
uploading this, so that people can go back and be, if even if they're not a musician, even if anybody, it's a truly inspiring story that I saw.
Thank you
So
so much, Karthik.
yeah,
I think just to summarize that is I never believed a word that the doctors told me.
right,
That's
right,
they said I could never play music again ever. I
correct,
mean, forget playing the bass, forget holding a guitar. You will not be able to hold a guitar because you wouldn't be able to eat by yourself.
right,
You know, so I never believed them. So I believed in God, who's
correct,
much bigger than that, and I think determination as well. Believe in God and believe in yourself.
correct.
So you know uh, that's what will take you far. And big thanks to you, Karthik. I think what you're doing is a great thing. It's a great initiative, and really appreciate you and admire you for what you're doing. And I mean, after you contacted me is when I went and checked out as well. I think you're doing a great service to the whole bass community. So here's wishing you the best, and I'll be excited to see the next interviews that you're gonna do with,
Right.
like you were saying, with the next
With
person and
Keith's,
all that. So Keith, yes, and I'm very excited to watch it. I'll also be following your, posts and stuff. So I think thanks and kudos to you for doing a
thank
great
you so
service to all the best players.
thank you so much, Naveen. Good
Thanks,
night. Good
Karthik.
night.
Good night. Thank you.